Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you failed to do or say the right thing because of all the pressure around you? It may have been a fear of losing a friendship or being criticized by someone. It may have even included an element of danger. This was the exact situation the disciples faced in today's reading. They were sitting down with Jesus at the Last Supper, talking about their week and what was to come, when all of a sudden Jesus predicts the failure of their courage. They're quick to deny it. Peter especially is adamant in his assertion of loyalty. In the end, every one of the disciples except for John deserted Jesus in his hour of greatest need. He was tried and executed as a criminal, and they didn't want to get mixed up in all that. The desertion actually began before dinner with Judas, whose disillusionment with Jesus led to betrayal. It then passed through the night as the rest of the disciples fell asleep while Jesus was pleading with God for Plan B. And then as the trial came, they took off one by one, leaving Jesus nearly alone to face his anguish. I'm sure they each had their reasons, but in the end, each of the reasons led to a failure of courage, a failure to do what was right in the face of pressure. I like the fact that this storyline was included in the Bible because it helps us understand that a crisis of courage, and even the failure of courage, is a common human predicament, even among religious superheroes like the disciples. It's not that we should set out to be cowardly. Courage is a great human virtue which we need to pursue with passion. But when we fail, there is hope. There's hope in knowing that others have also failed, but we also hope in knowing that we serve a God of second chances. Jesus doesn't sugarcoat the disciples' lack of courage. He names it for what it is. However, he goes on to say that their failure is not the end of the story. When he has been raised, he intends a rendezvous with them, not to consume them with fire, but to give them a second chance and new marching orders. It's interesting that all of the disciples took Jesus up on his second chance, and through the power of the Holy Spirit, resisted the temptation to cave in after that. An interesting observation from church history is that John, the only disciple to stay with Jesus through the crucifixion, was the only disciple to die a natural death. All the rest, except Judas, were executed for their faith in the risen Christ. Their failure was far from final. As we walk the road of suffering with Jesus in the days leading up to the anniversary of his crucifixion, it's important to remember that failures of courage don't have to be final. Just as Jesus was raised from the dead, so too our hearts can find new life and fresh strength. So the questions for this week are: which situations tend to test your courage? And do you have a failure of courage in your life which needs to be resurrected this Easter?